The evening with friends was supposed to be enjoyable and lighthearted. But things quickly took a turn for the worse. To be honest, I have no idea what happened to me. I suppose that maybe I just go a bit too far, but that doesn't justify what I said. Hello, my name is Jessica and I'm 32 years old. I'm here to tell you about the night I made a huge mistake. Sometimes you may believe you're joking, but you actually cross a line you were unaware existed. Then comes the fallout. When you pretend as though it's not a huge deal even though you can't really take it back. That foolish party was just like that. We were having a laid-back get-together with a few drinks and some games at a friend's place. When it all began, of course, my husband, Paul, was also present. Paul is 35 years old, somewhat reserved and, to be honest, has never been the kind to cause a stir. You know, he treats me and the kids well. Even if I can't keep my act together half the time, he works hard and keeps things going. However, I enjoy having a good time, talking loudly, and making people laugh sometimes at the expense of other people. We had all been discussing our recent activities, and I naturally had to mention that I was in charge of everything at home. Remember, I wasn't trying to be serious. I suppose Paul didn't see it that way. But it was only just a foolish, impetuous joke. The room went silent for a moment. And then everyone just kind of stared at Paul, waiting for his response. I laughed, took a sip of my wine, and said something along the lines of, "Yeah, at home I'm the boss. Paul just works and takes care of the kids while I handle everything else. I mean, I do everything. I'm the real head of the household." I found it amusing. But he didn't it amusing. He gave a forced smile, yet it was a type of smile. The stress in his expression was visible to me. I could tell he wasn't delighted, but he didn't say anything at first. Instead of dropping it there, I didn't consider how it would offend him. I just continued chatting. I went on and on about how I was in charge of all the bills, choosing the children's schools, and even managing our money, all of which, let's face it, I'm awful at. I kept acting like I had everything together. Even though I'm a terrible money manager, perhaps I didn't want to acknowledge my impulsiveness, my tendency to make foolish purchases when bored, and my poor time management. But really, when you're attempting to be cool, who needs to acknowledge that? Eventually, Paul cut me off and I realized I might have overreached myself. I realized that he was furious when he added, "You know, Jess, you act like I don't do anything around here, but you're the one who spends money without thinking. You're the one who buys things we don't need, and then I have to clean up the mess." However, I just dismissed it without offering an apology or taking responsibility for anything I had said. I joked that he ought to be accustomed to it by now, and that I was simply he needed to unwind and have a little fun. I dismissed it with a giggle as if it were insignificant. The problem is that I knew my words had offended him. Though I suppose I didn't care at the time. He's always been upset when I make fun of him. I wanted everyone to find me hilarious and giggle. But I knew I had gone too far when Paul's expression hardened. For a moment, I felt as though I might need to retract my actions and offer an apology because I could feel our friends watching. However, I didn't. Why? Because I dislike owning up to my mistakes. I detest it. I would like to ignore it and act as though nothing is wrong. This is how I've been for a while. It's easier to pretend I don't care than to take responsibility for my mistakes, but perhaps that's just who I am. The entire atmosphere changed after that, despite efforts to divert the conversation. I could sense Paul and I were at odds. He remained silent when we arrived home. I could tell he was upset because he headed directly to the bedroom. Did I apologize? Though, no. Was I even aware of my actions? Not at all. I knew deep down that I had harmed him. Even though I told myself I was simply kidding, I simply didn't want to acknowledge it. In addition, I didn't understand the significance of the money issue. He was aware of my financial shortcomings, but I wasn't intentionally trying to destroy our relationship. However, I admit that I might not have been entirely responsible. Him with a lot of cleanup to do, but I wasn't going to accept complete blame. Why would I? Ultimately, I still believed that I was correct. I mean, perhaps he mistook my attempt at lightheartedness for something more serious. Isn't that his fault? Even though I now realize that I might have been wrong to push Paul so far, I don't think it was a huge deal. He'll move on as usual, right? Naturally, things got worse. Even if I didn't anticipate it, I assumed that I could simply ignore it and move on as I usually do, but Paul isn't the kind of person who does that. The following morning was a complete mess, and I still don't know how I got into this situation. But here we are. Like every other day, I got up early to get the kids ready for school, but this time, something was different. The typical I'm still half asleep feeling wasn't the only chilly thing in the house. No, it was worse. We appeared to be strangers. Paul was silent and aloof, and I decided that was all right. He's merely exaggerating. When he's upset, I'm used to him pouting. And I've always assumed it's just his way of letting things go. I was preparing coffee when he came into the kitchen and said, "You know, Jessica, I'm tired of being the joke. I'm tired of you acting like I don't contribute to this family." I didn't give it much thought, but I froze. His voice had a harsh tone. Unlike Paul's typical tone, he felt as though something had finally broken inside of him. All I wanted to do was say something to put things right, but I was unable to do so. Rather, I simply stood there sipping my coffee I was holding the mug while feigning ignorance, as if I had no idea what he was talking about. What else could I do, considering that I had stated that I was only kidding last night? "Do you have any idea how I felt about that?" His voice trembled slightly as he asked. He was obviously crying, but I wasn't going to say I was sorry for what I had done. I was unable to. I didn't want to acknowledge that I might have gone too far. I became defensive, which is what I normally do when I don't want to confront the truth. I tried to be informal, but I could hear the tremor in my voice. "Paul, it was just a joke. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? You know I didn't mean anything by it," I said. I detested not being able to control it. But he wasn't buying it. He gave me a look as if he could see right through all of my foolishness. That hurt, and I knew it should have, but instead of taking responsibility for it, instead of feeling bad about the hurt I caused, I just became angry. "You're always joking about me, always making me look in front of people. And it's starting to wear me down. You never take anything seriously, Jessica. You never take us seriously." I instantly regretted what I said in response, but I was powerless to stop myself. "Well, maybe if you were a little more, I don't know, fun, maybe I wouldn't feel like I had to be the one carrying everything all the time," I remarked, sarcastically, laughing just a little. I couldn't help but say that, even though I knew I shouldn't have. The words seemed to flow out of me before I could stop them. I will always remember Paul's expression when I stated it. It was rage, utter frustration, not just hurt. I wasn't going to back down, though. I tried to act as though I wasn't truly upset and was simply venting. But I wasn't deceiving myself or anyone else. I felt in my heart that I was merely avoiding the fact that I had made a huge mistake. When things became too real for me to ignore and act as though nothing was wrong, I detested it. Thus, we were silent for the remainder of the morning. The kids were just happy about school, which I suppose was a gift in disguise, and naturally had no idea what was happening. But even when we weren't speaking, I could sense the tension between Paul and me. What's the worst? I was too indifferent to correct it. He'll get over it, I reasoned. He usually does. However, it wasn't until I went to check the bank account later that afternoon that I realized how mistaken I was. Since I'm not excellent with money, let's be honest, Paul generally takes care of all the bills it's impossible for me to keep track of. I usually wind up overspending on foolish things, and the money just keeps piling up. However, I discovered a significant issue when I examined the account. Like everything else, Paul had taken out all the savings. I entered complete panic mode. What on earth was happening? Was everything actually taken by him? With my heart racing, I called him right away, but he didn't answer. When things get tough, he never gets up. I attempted messaging in the hopes of receiving an explanation. He called me back at last, but his voice had a cold tone. "I've had enough, Jessica. You don't take anything seriously, not our finances, not me, not this family. I'm tired of being the one who holds it all together while you just do whatever you want. I can't keep doing this." I was afraid that I would choke. I was suddenly struck with the situation's reality. He was pushing away from me because I had pushed him too far. However, what did I do? As usual, I went into full-on damage control mode. The more I pleaded, the more I realized it wasn't working. "Paul, don't do this. We can fix it. I promise. I'm sorry. Please don't be. You know how I am. I didn't mean to hurt you." I apologized, but he simply kept saying that he was done without answering. Even though I knew I had pushed him too far, I didn't fully accept complete responsibility for it. I secretly understood that was different, but I assured myself that everything would be alright and that he would change. I may have pushed him too far this time. The days that followed were the most peaceful I've ever known in this house. It was so awful that I couldn't even look at Paul without my chest heaving. To be honest, though, I still had no idea how to solve it. Perhaps I wasn't prepared to apologize. But I didn't know how to do it without feeling like I was giving up everything. He might have simply ignored it, even though the one who made the joke that made him feel inferior. Why didn't he? Things like that always make him really sensitive. He laughed it off like everyone else, so why couldn't he? I tried to rationalize my behavior because, to be honest, I didn't want to confront the fact that I had made a mistake. However, the situation was not improving. On the contrary, it was becoming worse. Even with the children, it seemed like we were merely going through the motions. And he wasn't talking to me the way he used to. I knew the children could sense the stress. Even though they didn't understand, I also sensed it. Paul always had such hurt and rage in his eyes when I looked at him. What's the worst? I had no idea how to. I tried to divert my attention during the week by working, cleaning, or doing anything else that would prevent me from thinking about how much I had messed up. However, I would lie there and reflect on our chat at night when the house was silent and everyone was asleep. Would it have been possible for me to say something different? Was there anything I could have done better for once? Could I have truly apologized? Before, I didn't give a damn about things like this or whether I had wounded Paul. I always assumed he was being dramatic and that he would move on. I never imagined things would get to this point or that he would truly cut me off. However, I couldn't force myself to apologize because doing so would require me to acknowledge my error, something I simply couldn't do just now. Paul finally spoke to me again on Friday night after the kids had gone to bed. Unspoken comments filled the air as we sat in the living room. I wanted to say something, anything at all, to help him see my point, but my pride overrode my need to put things right. He began, Jessica, in a voice that was almost audible. His words hurt. But I wasn't going to show him how much they hurt. I'm done. I can't keep living like this. I can't keep giving you the benefit of the doubt only for you to keep pushing me away. You don't respect me. You don't value me. And I'm tired of pretending that everything's okay when it's not. I was too proud to be able to do it. I stated the only thing that came to mind at the time, rather than expressing regret. Paul, I didn't mean for it to go this far. But I'm not just going to sit here and act like I'm the one who messed everything up. You're the one who took all the money out of the account. You're the one who's shutting me out. It was a cheap ploy. But I had to do it. I have to protect myself. I couldn't allow him to make me feel like the bad guy in this situation. His voice was shaking as he said, You don't get it, do you? I've been trying to hold it together for so long, Jessica. I've been carrying everything. And you just keep taking and taking without giving anything back. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And that's when I realized he was being serious. This time, he was not going to pardon me. Pretending that nothing was wrong would no longer be an option. I had no idea how to stop him from leaving me. The remainder of the evening was a haze. After that, we said very little since we had nothing more to say. He went to the bedroom, and I remained in the living room. I was unable to ignore it any longer since it felt like we were living different lives in the same house. Paul was gone the following morning. He left without even waking me up. It all finally clicked when I woke up to discover a letter on the kitchen counter. I'm taking the kids to my mom's. I need space. We'll talk later. He was pushed too far by me. This time, I had gone too far. I had no option. But I wasn't prepared to face it. I felt as though everything I had fought so hard to achieve and had taken for granted was slipping away from me as I sat down on the couch. But did I actually accept accountability? Was I really responsible for what I did? Instead, I sat there, lamenting my situation and wondering how long it would take for Paul to return and make things right. I couldn't resist. I wasn't prepared to acknowledge my error. I wasn't prepared to accept the possibility that I might have lost all I owned, including my family and house. Then it dawned on me that I was more concerned with how it affected me than I was with making things right for him. For 2 days, Paul remained at his mother's house. There were no calls, SMS, or other communications during that time. I also didn't call him to apologize, even though I knew I should have. Instead, I tried to divert my attention from the situation by browsing through my phone throughout that time.